They want to feel like their kids can safely get from their house to school, whether it's by walking or biking.
Yeah.
And so in this sense, we're feeling like we're doing what the community wants us to do, is to make it safer for all these kids walking and biking to school in this corridor.
We know that we can do better in this area, and so that's why it's been it's something that we've been focused on the last 3 or 4 years.
Hello and welcome to the Something Better podcast. I'm Joe Conroy. I'm the host and public information officer for the city of Bakersfield. We're joined here. We actually have a couple of friendly faces who were here recently, Gary Hallen and Zac Meyer. We have our assistant city manager and public works director. Thanks for coming back, guys.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Glad I didn't scare you off.
No, we're happy to be back.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. We'll jump into our topic here in a minute. We're going to talk about traffic safety and pedestrian safety a little bit here. But before we do, remind the folks, and if you don't get enough information here about who they are, feel free to go back and listen to the previous episode we had them on. But Gary, real quick, kind of what's your background here?
Sure. I've worked in development for the last 25 years in local government, both here at the city and at the County of San Bernardino, and I oversee the Public Works Department, Development Services Department, and Economic Development.
Cool. Zac?
Yes, and I've been working for the city for almost 18 years, always in an engineering capacity, most of that time in public works and overseeing operations and engineering at this time.
Awesome. Well, and congratulations on your upcoming anniversary. I think you said May?
Yes.
Or it may be past, depending on when this airs. But yeah, May, you'll be here 18 years.
Yes.
That's incredible. And again, Bakersfield native, so you can do great things, even staying here in Bakersfield and helping out your hometown. So we'll jump right in here to our big topic for the day. We're talking about multi-modal projects around the city of Bakersfield. And before we get too far into what projects you guys have coming on, can one of you just define what multi-modal is and why it's something it's come up a lot lately?
Yeah, I'll get a try at that. So many of us drive cars, and oftentimes we only think that that's the only way to get around.
Yeah.
But many people don't have cars. And so other people get around, whether on bikes, on scooters, walking. And so there's lots of different ways that people travel the city, not just by car. And so multimodal is bus, scooter, bike, pedestrian. And so that roadway, that way that we get around, the thing that we ride on, is not is for multiple uses, and so that's why it's the multi-modal
plan
way of doing things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And it's a new thing, right? Relatively new, I guess.
Yeah, it's new to us here at the city, but it's been tried and done across the country. So we know that we can do better in this area, and so that's why it's something that we've been focused on the last 3 or 4 years.
And the city council has a multimodal committee even now, which I think is relatively new in the last few years. And they look at these types of things, right, and how to maybe set policies so that we're thinking about these types of projects and these types of improvements. And that actually brought along, I think we talked about it last time, complete streets, right? Is that where that came from?
Yes.
Okay. And so remind folks a little bit what complete streets is and why you guys do. How does it work within your department?
So with a complete street, it does touch on all the things Gary mentioned. The city does have a complete street ordinance, so there is some policy that my staff looks to investigate when they're designing projects. But then complete street takes into account, those multimodal transportation elements, the buses, the walking, the biking, the scootering, and then even incorporates, the whole street in terms of lighting, landscape, making things safer and giving more consideration to all these other forms of transportation.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think whenever we're doing either a new project or a new location or we're doing an improvement somewhere to some road, we have to kind of look at it through that complete streets lens before we can finalize on a project, right?
Yes, so again, we do have an ordinance, so we do check those boxes off and want to make sure if we can't do it, there's usually a reason why, whether it's an older part of town and we just don't have the room or the capacity or the road wasn't originally designed
Yeah.
To our current standards, but we try to do the best we can and try to prioritize what we feel is most important for that road in that area.
Okay, so I think we've got a handle on multimodal now, what we're talking about. The last time you guys were here, we talked about 8th Street, the improvements there. We talked about some of that stuff that had some multimodal improvements as well. What are some other projects that you guys have kind of in the hopper coming that people would be looking forward to, or at least we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple and let Zach hit on any others. But probably the largest, and we did talk about 8th Street, which is upcoming. The largest from start to finish, from south to north, would be our Monitor Street. That's I believe it's 4.5 miles of roadway in total. We are going to try to chop that one up probably in different phases because it's so large, and not try to eat that entire stretch all in one project.
Yeah.
But that's a future project that's out there, and we also have Niles and Monterey. We've worked a lot in that community, whether it was our Old Town Kern vision plan and the efforts that economic development was making, but also Public Works has done some demonstration projects out there, along with getting it fully designed and ready for a complete street on Niles and Monterey.
Yeah, and I'll add a Monitor too that the boundary is basically from South High School all the way to Golden Valley. And when you look in between those two high schools, you frequently come across elementary schools, middle schools, either right off of Monitor or within 1,000 feet of Monitor in that whole corridor. So it is very unique. You don't see very many corridors in the city that have this many schools. So we have done public outreach where we did some open houses at Golden Valley High School, and this was, there were a lot of people in attendance, and that was the overall, consensus on the feedback is they all wanted these things. They wanted their kids they wanted to feel like their kids can safely get from their house to school, whether it's by walking or biking.
Yeah.
And so in this sense, we're feeling like we're doing what the community wants us to do, is to make it safer for all these kids walking and biking to school in this corridor.
That uniqueness, was that a reason why maybe this project was prioritized? Is it's unlike some of these other places?
Yeah, I think when, especially as Gary mentioned, this complete street concepts, the multimodal projects, these are newer to the city. So you look at, okay, where does this make the most sense? And this is one of the areas where it just made a lot of sense.
And you guys have done some demonstration projects. I think Niles and Monterey was one of them, and you guys learned some things, what to do, what not to do, and what worked for the community there and what maybe didn't. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how that demonstration project went and what you guys maybe learned from it, or what you guys are going to try to carry on for some of these other projects?
Yeah, I think some of the things we did at Niles and Monterey is, one, we tried putting the parking away from the curb and then put the bike lane behind the parking.
Okay.
I would say when we first brought that out, it did create a lot of confusion. We had to do additional marking on the ground to designate what's the lane, what's parking after the fact. And then we also used rubberized concrete that was bolted down to emulate bulb outs.
Okay.
Which we do more bulb outs now with concrete.
Okay.
Concrete's more durable, it's more permanent, but because of this demonstration, we wanted something that wasn't as permanent. But that was probably one of the biggest takeaways, is we learned we don't want to do that anymore because it can't last.
Yeah.
People kept hitting them, and they would just get ripped out of the ground.
And that's the idea of doing a demonstration project, is kind of learning what works, what doesn't, what does the community appreciate or like, how it's, is it working for them? Because they're the ones going to have to live with it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think another thing to add, and we learn, I think, something on every project. I think we can say that unequivocally. On some of these demonstration projects, we also learned that we need to do more community outreach. I think on Niles and Monterey, we partnered with Blue Zones, and Blue Zones has been a frequent partner with the city on multimodal projects and working on complete streets. And they did some additional outreach with the neighbors and got some of their feedback, because they were the ones that weren't parking adjacent to the curb any longer. They were the ones that had, this new bike lane that was right adjacent to a curb, and they had some of these new demonstration things. And Blue Zones took that feedback and gave it back to us. And that was just a great ongoing a process where the more outreach we did, the more we learned, and we got some good direct feedback.
And off that feedback and working with the community, that outreach, again, you kind of hit on it, I think, Zach. These improvements that you're going to bring to Niles and Monterey and Monitor are things that the community actually asked us for, right? It wasn't we came to them and said, we're going to do this for you, and here's what's going to happen. They came at us and said, we need some improvements. These are the types of things we want to see, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier we did like an open house at Golden Valley High School, and our consultant on the Monitor Street project is Kimley Horn, and they did a really good job of setting up all these boards and laying out the whole layout of the corridor and have people come in and like, where do you want to see crosswalks? Where do you want to see more traffic signals or stop signs and these types of things? And then they even on some of their boards had took a cross section of the street, like here's where the cars go, here's where the bicyclists go, here's where the landscape goes. How do you want to chop this up so people are going in and moving these elements around? And
interactive?
Yeah, very interactive. Yeah. So we could see what is it that they want the road to look like, and they got to weigh in a lot in that.
Awesome. That's really cool. I missed those, so that's interesting to hear. One of the things that you mentioned before too was being able to do these complete streets and multimodal and community feedback. And Zach, there's a way that if somebody sees something in their neighborhood that they want to maybe have the city look at for safety improvements, how can they reach out to us? How can they do that?
So they can go online and look at the Public Works website, under engineering. There's a general Public Works phone line. They could always call and leave a message, and staff will get back to them. But the easiest way to reach out to the Public Works Department, whether it's for graffiti, potholes, or traffic calming requests, is to use the City Source app. Some of that stuff's already identified, but even if there's just a general ticket somebody can make, where do you think there should be a crosswalk or a stop sign or speed humps, or we have other elements like radar feedback signs. People should start seeing those more and more that tell you your speed as you're driving through. Some of these things are really popular around schools because it's a very common issue with parents doing pickup and drop off and the kids walking, that they always want it safer for their kids going to and from school. So using the City Source app, which could just be downloaded on your phone, that's by far the easiest way to communicate that to my department. And then for traffic calming, there is a map on our website that shows when your request goes in, and then if your request is completed, we'll have those start and finish dates.
And there's like a map where it's almost interactive, I think, there where you can say, this area, there's people speeding all the time, or we need a stop sign or something like that, right?
Yeah, and you could see, it also helps us to see if there's any, this is
recurring
almost creates like a HOTS map, because you kind of see is there an area where there's more requests than normal.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, well, if everybody's putting in tickets here, then maybe this is an area we need to look at more conceptually.
Bumps it up the list a little bit.
Yeah, take a step back and say, okay, is there something we can do here in form of a bigger project if this is the need of the community?
Okay, cool. Well, sounds like there's lots of ways for folks to get a hold of us and tell us about the concerns they might have in their own neighborhoods or communities. Gentlemen, again, thank you very much for being back and coming back. I'm sure we'll have you back here again and when we have some other big projects coming up. But again, thank you for coming and thank you for listening. This is the Something Better podcast. I'm Joe Conroy, and we thank you for listening. And if you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite program or service, and we'll catch you in the next episode.